What's going on? What's going on? Welcome to another episode, the Love God, Love Sex podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Heath.
Yo, what's good, everybody? It's Jamie.
Yeah, back in this again. Always a quick shout out to everybody who's been showing support on TikTok and YouTube. Specifically, we're at Love God, Love Sex Pod. Go ahead and smash that subscribe button. We're also on Google Podcasts, Spotify, and Apple Podcast at Love God, Love Sex Pod. If you're listening for the first time, go ahead and hit that subscribe button so you always stay up to date with new episodes. Speaking of new episodes, this is a brand new spanking episode. Why spanking? Why does spanking have to be part of anything good or refreshing? None of the spankings I got were good or refreshing.
I don't know. Some of the ones I gave were very refreshing.
That's a good one. So with that said, hey.
I mean, this is a sex podcast.
Yeah, it is. Hey. So with that said, we hope you guys enjoyed Talking Up. We want to shout out Talking Up because that was an episode we felt that was just so natural. It was one of the closest times we got so intimate with who we are and how we are in our natural conversations when we're not recording. So we're moving forward with that style and trying to maintain that. With that said, new episode, 5 things men wish women knew. That's what we're talking about today.
It's only 5. It's only 5. It's only 5. It could be so many more, but it's only 5.
Yeah. You know, I just want to list in the beginning just so anyone who's listening can get it. So one of the things is about communication style. Number 2 is importance of compliments. Number 3, a need for personal space. 4, emotional vulnerability. 5, fear of rejection. Those are the 5 things that men wish women knew. And we're going to cover each topic. Let's start with number 1, Jay. Communication style. What is it that you think women are missing about us as men, about kind of generally speaking, what our communication style is?
We don't always want to be, emotionally open and vulnerable, even though we may be sensitive about something, that we may feel something, we have feelings about it. We don't necessarily want to have a long, drawn out emotional conversation. It's like, I don't really feel like telling you why I get upset when you don't listen to me. And, my parents didn't listen to me when I tried to tell them what I wanted to be. They just tried to plot out my life for me. And it's
exactly.
I have lived a life where I have felt unaffirmed in my thinking and choices for my own life. And here I am again with this person who I'm supposed to be with for the rest of my life. And I'm trying to tell him, or they're asking me to tell them how I feel, only to not listen to me. So I don't really even want to go through that.
Yeah. I think a lot of us as men are dealing with a lot of pain and carrying a lot of pain. And there's always the sneaky suspicion that if I really give you all my pain, full tilt, full volcanic eruption, are you really going to be able to handle it? And for a lot of men, I believe being solutions oriented in how a lot of us think and being logical is about solving the problem. And it is about pain alleviation. So the pain alleviation comes from solving the problem, from applying good logic models, or what we think good logic models are, as opposed to just emoting, crying, connecting, being affectionate. It's just something that I think we struggle with because in the man world, that don't count for squat. Now, it's been changing since I've gotten older. Have you noticed that? I have noticed some conversations with men have gotten more emotive, or maybe certain men.
Yeah, I think maybe it's certain. Honestly, because obviously I think, yes, because there have been calls for men to be more emotional, I think women are starting to see that, we are very sensitive. And it's not just, a male ego that's fragile. It's like there's actually a whole emotional system going on inside of us, and we need certain parts of that affirmed and tended to and all of that. So, yeah, I mean, I feel like there's a lot more of that happening. But at the same time, I think the majority of men would probably say they still get the friction of, like you said, if I give you all of who I am emotionally, not only can you handle it, but will you support me through that for real? Like, will you not then all of a sudden call me a sassy man? And you know what I'm saying? All of a sudden, you're questioning my manhood, or you're telling me to be aggressive, like homegirl on Love is Blind. But yeah, I mean, it's just like, can I really show you who I am? Now, obviously, in the red pill community, they would say, never really show who you are emotionally or give that up to a woman because they're not built, to really respect or affirm a man's emotions.
Yeah, I saw that. I actually just saw Angela Knight, who I did Angela Knight 2.0, I think is her TikTok name. And she was just responding to a question about Uncle Kevin Samuels, about what he was saying about, a man should never vent to a woman. I didn't stay to watch the entire video, but she was addressing that. What does it mean to vent versus the point she was starting to make is, well, there's different definitions of vent, and we have to normalize or define rather what vent is. We're going to have that conversation. Yeah, for sure. Communication styles vary between men and among men. And if you have a man who's more logic oriented, giving him the time and space to figure out his emotions is fine. If you have someone who's more emotion, allowing him to eventually find his logic side, matters. Number two is the importance of compliments. We got to go deep on this one. Men hearing. Yeah, knee deep. I mean, because men love hearing a compliment from their woman, and especially about work that they've done. I think a woman being grateful to her man, expressing gratitude, and recognizing his work and his determination, and really the thoughts and feelings of his heart that he has for his family or for his woman, because we may not be emoting and talking about it all the time, but we're looking to show you, hey, I'm getting up early in the morning and addressing, the garbage and some of the other domestic chores we discussed. I'm coming home late because I'm putting in those extra hours so that we could save for that vacation to go to Tahiti or Bali. A lot of men are looking for that recognition and compliment, not for it to be overwhelming, just throwing roses at his feet like Caesar entering Rome, but for some recognition there. And what I find, and here's my controversial statement, not of the night, but over this moment, I feel a lot of women have a hard time doing that. They want the emotion. They want the emotive part. But then when it comes time to pay that compliment, don't know if that's really there.
I can understand why you would say something like that. I mean, obviously, there are situations and scenarios where in your life, your experience, you've done something that you felt like deserved recognition, and maybe that was lacking or that wasn't there. But I think you've also, like, maybe your partner does that in the same way of you getting up and doing the extra stuff you do. Maybe they feel like they do that with actions too. And I think service. I think sometimes we can get caught up in how we get the complimenting, but we it's like we really need to be sensitive to this person that we have this expectation from. And I mean, listen, I'm only saying that because what you said really resonates with me, bro. Like there's been times when I was, married and I felt like I did something that deserved some recognition, but it was just, so thankless. It was like, well, that's what you're supposed to do. You're a man. And
I moved little gallons of paint over into the closet. Okay, well, that's what you're supposed to do. But if I turn around and said, she's like, well, I sucked your dick. Like, that's what you're supposed to do. That's what I have you here for. The slob on the knob, like corn on the cob.
Check you and me and do your job. Listen, man. No, I feel you. I feel you that this, like you said, we got to get deep on this because words of affirmation really, I mean, for everybody I know who read that 5 love languages book, most of the men I know came back saying that was like their number one love language.
Oh yeah. Words of affirmation. One of the reasons why so many of us are into the kind of overused, fast food processed porn. It's the woman's compliments. It's the woman's, the eyes, the way she looks in the guy's eyes, her whole posture of body language, welcoming him and inviting him into that space, into that moment, those cluster of moments together. That ultimately just draws a man in. And then you come home and you may be having sex, but you just feel like it's stale or it's just microwaved, right? Okay, it's ready for you, And that is difficult for families and couples that are extremely busy and managing multiple priorities throughout the given day. But
there is a but.
But if we're talking about 5 things men wish women knew, and a woman wants to know more about her man in a way to please him and meet him, he's been closed off. He's been combative.
So guarded lately.
You've just been so guarded lately. He's been guarded. Inside joke, everybody. Try compliments.
Yeah.
It's the water and the sunlight that eventually just opens up the rose. And even that imagery, if I say that about a man being like a rose, is that feminine?
Listen, for some good compliments, I'll be that. Good compliments. I mean, compliments feel great, bro. Compliments feel great.
But this is why, when I think about the addictions to porn or the connections to porn that I still have, and I'm not an avid porn watcher, when I think about porn, it's that performance that's anchoring me. Because the sex is the sex. I mean, I'm old enough now, right? When you're a child and you're not having a lot of sex. But when I've developed the skill of sex, because sex is a skill, and I've forged the connections that I've forged, and I've created the platform I've created for me to process my intentions, my emotions, and my outlook, the sex don't really do it for me, because your dick is in your hand. You know what I mean? Like, your dick is in your hand. It ain't no, imagination that can cover up, your hand, your palm on your penis. Ain't nothing you can do.
Right.
But you can't replicate feminine energy coming at you through a posture, body language, and words, noise, even. I mean, it's just entrancing if you just become enthralled with it.
This man said he become entranced.
Oh, yeah, like
the snake,
the Looney Tunes with the smoke grabbing you by the nose.
You know what's so crazy, bro? Like, that's a perfect word picture of what compliments really do. It's really like being a cobra in a box, somebody being a snake charmer, and just like playing that melody that brings you out of that box. Your ego, like it's something that turns on that king inside you that makes you feel like, yo, I can do this.
Oh, for sure.
I feel like that's why women are great motivators. Like, if they whisper something good in your ear, son, there's nothing you can't do.
Little side story. I was at my cousin's house like last year, and he watches a lot of Naked and Afraid. I don't know if you've seen the show. They drop people off like Survivor, but you're naked and you have a few items, tools, like a cave person, quote unquote, and you got to survive for several days. There was this group. It was an older white dude and this young woman, and they basically had to set up this bait to trap a crocodile or an alligator, crocodile, excuse me, and they can eat it. So he's over there by the bank of the water. There's all kinds of things stinging you, and he's like fumbling with it, and he's like trying to get it down. He's trying to catch the fish so he can bait the crocodile. And she's like, "Oh man, you're just so amazing. Look at you. Look at you, how you just bending that boat. I mean, yo, you're the man. You're incredible." My cousin just leans over. It's like, "You see how these women gas you up?" She didn't want to be there helping him, being by the bank of the river, trying to catch a croc. She didn't want to be that. So she's there. "Yeah, you got it. You're great." The more she was talking, the more she's like, "Yeah, I got this."
So wait. Are you saying that as much as we're telling them about the importance of compliments, it can also be used to do damage?
No, I'm saying that's how much it does. Had your man at the bank of the Nile.
He could have did that all night. He could have did that for another 3 hours.
Hey, yo, he worked. It worked. He caught the fish and everything. And then he made a mistake and got cocky with the fish fell out of his
He could have did that for another 3 hours, bro. Just off of saying,
she was just gassing him up. And it wasn't even sexual. It wasn't like, "All right, camera's off. All right, come on, let's go in this little tent right here." Because that's not obviously what they're doing on that show. You can tell the way it's just a weathered experience. But he was just working the trap, figuring out how he was going to catch this crocodile so they can eat. And, she didn't want to be in that water, so she gave him what he needed for him to stay in the water. And I'd be like, "Wait a minute, why am I down here? You're up there. It's only like a 3-person team here." No, she kept him moving with those words. Man, those compliments will move a man to move mountains.
To do some incredible things. Absolutely.
So, yeah. Number 3, Need for personal space. Now, this is going to sound funny to any woman listening to this. We're talking about compliments and now a need for personal space. What y'all really want from a sister?
I mean, normally they kind of go hand in hand. It's like, build me up, sex
Let
me
me
up,
loose.
and then give me some space to recharge for this next affirmation session. It's all circular, bro. It's all circular.
Well, personal space is great for reflection. Many times men are stuck in their minds and not enough connecting their minds to their hearts. And if you just take that time to do that, you often start to identify spaces and places in your life that really need your deep attention, whether it be your kids, your children, your woman, your cunnilingus game.
Your workout game,
your fat loss game, your muscle building game, your I keep promising to do things in the home and I don't do them game. I see her struggling, so I need to really think about how I can help her game. Now, some men, they're not going to do that no matter how long they reflect. But for men who find reflection and meditation an important part of resting so they can recharge and reboot, personal space is a big part of it. Even if it's just them going to the movies by themselves, running to Home Depot, running down to the other store, doing some errands on their own, it helps them to recharge, refocus, and replenish who they are.
Yeah, personal space is always good to have. Sometimes in your isolation, you get some of your deepest revelations or some of, the visions that propel you to the next phase of life or the next season. So, I mean, I'm always going to be a proponent of personal space and taking that when you need it. And I think, obviously in context of what we're talking about, ladies, you got to know that when your man is asking for it, it's not necessarily you're getting on his nerves or that there's a problem. This is just a normal need for a guy. We really kind of thrive a lot of times in isolation. Yeah, like I know we want to get away from like the hunter-gatherer paradigm, but that DNA is really embedded in us, and you can't hunt. You can't hunt with a whole bunch of people that are trying to engage you emotionally. Like you need to be locked in. Yeah. And so unless you're around other hunters, you won't really understand the need for space. But I think I was just saying, it's like, that's the time when women need to understand that, like, it doesn't mean that something's wrong with you. It doesn't mean that there's an issue in the relationship. It's just right now he needs some space to recharge or whatever that is, process, think of that next move, whatever that is,
For sure. That personal space will elevate and move and allow you to become a better man for all the seasons in your life. A better man for all your seasons in your life. Even in that man cave, with that game on, it can provide the kind of constancy that a man may need with entertainment, with mirth, fun, and joy, or just relaxation, for sure. Let's hit up number 4, emotional vulnerability. I want to read what we have here because Jay really scripted something that I believe is a good departure point for this conversation. Like women, men experience a wide range of emotions, but often feel discouraged by society to express them. This is difficult because you will hear stories of men feeling harassed by their woman to go to therapy. Day in and day out, month out, quarter out and quarter out, year after year. They finally relent. They go. They sit in a therapy session for a month, 2 months, maybe a year. Finally, there's a breakthrough with him. He starts to tell stories of abuse, pain, trauma. And after all of that harassment, after all that, encouragement, I wouldn't call harassment, but encouragement, we could look at it both sides of the coin. Their woman will turn around to them and say, look at this little bitch. At the point of tears, at the point of confession, just you're trying to hold back tears because you're trying to be manly in the moment.
Yeah.
Now, that's not all women, and that's not an indictment on women, and it's not being critical about women. It talks about a phenomena that I believe most men believe awaits them once they go into that therapy room. That once I get vulnerable, once I tell you that my dad did this, my uncle did that. Once I tell you secretly I've been wanting to sleep with your sister or hump your best friend, or once I tell you darker secrets of myself and my character, I've been cheating on the taxes, I've been funneling money, I've been fill in the blank. Now comes the judgment. Now comes the castration. And I don't know how to encourage women to think or be different in this moment or with these moments, because they're very precious, because I do believe there are women who are very supportive of their men and they want them to have a rich, deep, and emotional life for themselves, for their men, on their men's like own constitution and purpose, but also to share it with them and their children if they have children, or just with their family and friends, however their network is structured. But this is a real fear for many men, that once I give myself to you emotionally, you're going to trample on it. And it's also one of the main reasons people argue that you'll see a man and woman married for 30, 35 years. The wife dies and the man's married within 2 years. Why? For some men, they lived in the dark for so long, not having an emotionally mature partner. They were in their own mind, in their own selves, practicing these modes of masculinity that were unhealthy, or were given or programmed to them, that when they find that and they lose that woman, I find another one, I'm right back in the saddle.
Mm-hmm.
Not saying that's a solution, but we're just talking about the other flip side of it. What's your opinion on this, Jay?
Well, in the last episode, we talked about, or I said that men and women go through a lot of the same things, just in different bodies. And the reason why I wrote the description of this thing this way is because I felt like it was a great entry point for women to understand a comment like that. When we are in a vulnerable place, when a woman is in a vulnerable place, right? And I'm saying this sexually, when she's opening herself to you in that vulnerable place, it would be really ugly for you as the person who's receiving that to treat it like it's nothing. To enter inside her knowing you haven't been tested, or you haven't been, being responsible, living responsibly. It is the same thing when a man is opening his heart to you. Now, obviously, opening your legs and opening your heart are two different things, but it has the same kind of cause and effect. When I'm vulnerable with you and I'm open to you, it's not something for you to take lightly, like you said, for you to trample on, or for you to just treat like it has no value. Mm. And I think a lot of men end up feeling that way when they are open, and that happens when they're not necessarily met with one, affirmation, or, two, someone making them feel like, yo, I'm supporting you. And there's no judgment in what you're revealing to me. Mm-hmm. And I can understand why Uncle Kev would say something like, don't be completely vulnerable with a woman, or why some people in the red pill community think that way. I can understand it.
Yeah, you've heard that part.
I was going to say, I think just to move that conversation forward, it's really, how they respond. Don't let that stop you from being emotionally vulnerable. Being emotionally vulnerable is the goal. So if they judge you, that's just like an obstacle in front of you trying to reach your goal. But the goal is always the goal, to be emotionally vulnerable and aware.
For sure. It's noble work, but it's difficult work for a lot of us because of the experiences we've had and the networks we've been a part of, and the way society has shaped us and allowed us to normalize certain aspects of violent behavior and certain aspects of aggressive behavior as displays of your masculinity, as displays of your intelligence, as displays of your worthiness, your social status. And we all know that to be false, because extreme displays of aggressiveness and violence can get you killed or imprisoned for for those who are just as equally unfortunate as those who have been killed. And I say that because we know prison can be very brutal. And for those who just end up languishing around, we've heard so many stories of men who aren't working. They've left their wives and their daughters. They left their wives and their girlfriends to, survive on their own, to pay all the bills, not to contribute in the household. I think some of these men have an issue with being vulnerable, with recognizing maybe some kind of form of depression or low-grade depression or some form of dissonance or disconnection to the world, feeling they are disempowered, even worse, maybe powerless.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's crazy problematic and difficult to just talk about in a very straight and easy way, because you're really starting to see a lot of men discombobulate in different ways, whether it's these extreme forms of violence, but then also what I'm noticing is this quiet revolt of just not doing, not performing, not moving. And while it's good to revolt against structures and rules that are constraining, it's a problem when you're not providing and you're putting that work on someone else. You're putting extra burdens on your partner to carry the relationship materially, emotionally, spiritually, and physically. It's just not right. So I'm hoping that a lot of men just can find ways to feel comfortable with themselves first and foremost, and then with their partners to be emotionally vulnerable. Last one, fear of rejection. Men fear rejection. You think we get used to it by now with all the rejection we've gotten. Let me get your phone number, babe. Get out of here. Can I just get out of here?
Even before that, just like the first basketball team you went out for or sports team you went out for. You know what I mean? We've been getting this since we were kids. Nobody's picking us at the playground or something like that,
Yeah.
I mean, that wasn't me, but I'm just saying that happened.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, but, fear of rejection, though, is still a big aspect for a lot of men. It's one of the reasons I've seen research say that video games have become so important to men. Why? You can control the difficulty level. So everyone else could be playing on hard, but you could be playing on easy, but you still get to talk about, the fun of the game and, the puzzles of the game and the joy of the game. So you could control the difficulty level. It's you doing and engaging with something on your own terms. It's for your entertainment and on your own terms. And 3, if you do lose, the loss is private. Now, with online gaming, that's altered a bit, but for the most part, that's still true. It allows you to create a persona and to create an outcome, even if it wasn't there, that still holds you in league with other young men or other men in general. A lot of people now are playing, different age groups playing video games, and that's why I say young men to men. And I believe that's because men still fear rejection. They still fear someone being told, or someone telling them rather, you didn't make the team. And that still happens because you're going to go out for dates. And this goes back to Scott Galloway's question about men, right? Not being able to attract 80% of the women on the apps. There are 10% of the men attracting 80% of the women. And the majority of the men are not in that class. If I was single, I most likely, highly likely, would not be in that class. So they don't want to say, well, I'm not in that class. I'm not 666.
I mean, of course you would. Talking like that.
What are you talking about?
I mean, if you said if you were single, you would be in that class. That's what I'm saying. Of course you would, if you're talking like that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I just mean I wouldn't be in that 10% class. I'd be in this larger class of men who would be fighting for, as Scott Galloway says, 20% of the remaining women who are open to dating or somehow squeezed out from getting the men who can signal resources and signal wealth and signal some of the primal, I would say, statuses that we look for, height, length, health, immune system.
Salary. Yeah, all of that.
Salary, provision. Yeah, for sure. Is rejection still a big thing for you?
No. And I mean, this is one of the things I feel like has helped me through life. My mindset is not one that I should have everything that I want. Even if it's something that I can work for, just because I want it doesn't mean I should really put energy in having it and pursuing it.
That's a bar.
And And I feel like I'm kind of led internally by that. Like there's a voice that's like, yeah, it's almost like, the scripture when Paul talks about like everything is lawful, but not everything's beneficial.
Yeah, everything's permissible and everything's beneficial. Yeah, with different interpretation, a different wording, but yes, same intention.
So that's really kind of what guardrails a lot of my decisions about what I want and rejection. Now, obviously, when I do actually put my hand to something and I feel like I get rejected, yeah, of course it means something. Nobody wants to be rejected, but rejection for me is not necessarily a deterrent.
Yeah. Yeah. I like that you have an understanding that everything you want isn't necessarily beneficial or good for you. So you know, or try to discern the waves of movement around your desires to understand, all right, maybe I wanted this thing so badly and it's no, never, or no, not right now. But I'm going to move forward with my life and not be sucked into this dark hole of rejection and anger and bitterness because it didn't happen the way that I wanted to happen, or because it didn't happen at all. Didn't happen at all.
Your desires are insatiable, bro.
Oh yeah, like
chasing
death and destruction. The eyes of man are never satisfied.
Never satisfied. Never satisfied. If honestly, bro, you can really make a job out of chasing everything you want every day. There are probably 3 or 4 things that you could chase every day that if you got paid for, you'd be a millionaire. Yeah. But it's like not everything you want is necessarily good for you. Again, even if you can work for it, if you can work hard, it's still just like, is this really where I need to be putting my energy?
Perfect. Yeah. So, is this what I'm called to do? This is who I'm called to be.
Yeah. And on that note,
let's recap 5 things men wish women knew. Number 1, we have a certain type of communication style. Yes, we're in tune with our emotions. Some of us are very aware, deeply aware of our emotions, but we're more solutions oriented and want to solve our problems. That's sometimes how we alleviate our emotions. Importance of compliments. Men love compliments, words of affirmation. They like to have words as gifts lavished upon them, recognition for all that they do and what's in their heart. Need for personal space. Men grow in their personal reflections and they grow in their meditation time or their chill entertainment time. It's just a way for them to recharge, recalibrate, and boost up so they can come back harder, faster, stronger for them and their families. Emotional vulnerability. Men are looking for places and spaces with their women where they can be emotionally vulnerable and deep to reveal the deep well of connection and emotion that is just coursing within them. And they need time, sometimes some therapy, but also a trusting partner that can do all that. Number 5, fear of rejection. Men do have a fear of rejection, even as we get older. Yeah, we should be over certain things, but men still are afraid to ask for that number as grown 42-year-old men. They're afraid of being rejected. They're afraid of also being rejected in their relationships when they show a bid for connection, a bid for love, and a bid for understanding. With that said, thanks a lot. This has been a great episode. Jay, any final words?
None.
Again, check us out. TikTok, YouTube, at Love God, Love Sex Pod. You can also check us out on Google Podcasts, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, at Love God, Love Sex Pod. Go ahead and smash that subscriber button. We're also available in email. Any show ideas, topics, or suggestions, connect at lovegodlovesexpodcast.net. Thanks for listening. Until next time, take care.
Peace.